Canada holds one of the world's largest reserves of potash, a critical fertilizer component necessary for modern agriculture. As the global leader in potash production and exports, Canada's decisions regarding export policies directly influence international markets, especially its largest trading partner, the United States. Potash significantly enhances crop yields by providing potassium, an essential nutrient promoting drought resistance, disease immunity, and overall plant vitality. Any substantial disruption or policy change restricting Canadian potash exports would inevitably send shockwaves through American agriculture, potentially escalating into a food crisis. The United States heavily depends on Canadian potash, importing around 85% of its total potash needs from its northern neighbor. This dependency underscores a critical vulnerability. American agriculture, responsible for feeding both domestic populations and significant international markets, relies profoundly on stable and predictable access to potash. Should Canada restrict or ban potash exports, U.S. farmers would immediately face skyrocketing fertilizer prices and acute shortages, directly impairing agricultural productivity. Historically, American agriculture has leveraged fertilizers to achieve record crop yields, particularly in staple commodities such as corn, wheat, and soybeans. Potash specifically plays an outsized role in corn production, America's largest agricultural export. Reduced availability would force farmers to either cut fertilizer use, risking drastically reduced yields, or source alternative supplies from far-flung markets such as Belarus or Russia, which come with significant logistical, economic, and geopolitical complexities. In the short term, a Canadian export ban would trigger immediate price surges in the fertilizer market, sharply elevating production costs for American farmers. Elevated input costs could compel many farmers, especially smaller-scale producers with thinner margins, to reduce cultivated acreage or switch to less fertilizer-intensive crops. Such a shift would constrict supply and increase prices across a broad spectrum of agricultural goods. Moreover, heightened agricultural input costs inevitably cascade down to consumers. Rapidly increasing food prices would disproportionately affect economically vulnerable communities, contributing to rising food insecurity. A sustained reduction in crop yields and increased consumer prices could spiral into a broader food crisis scenario, straining U.S. food supply chains and heightening socioeconomic disparities. Beyond domestic impacts, diminished U.S. agricultural productivity also threatens global food stability, as the United States is a primary exporter of essential commodities. Countries worldwide rely heavily on American grain exports. Any decline in production capacity could exacerbate global food shortages, destabilizing international markets and potentially increasing geopolitical tensions. The potential economic impact extends beyond agriculture itself. Agriculture supports a significant portion of the American economy through employment, exports, manufacturing, and transport sectors. Rising input costs and reduced crop yields would negatively affect rural economies heavily reliant on farming revenue. Reduced agricultural profitability would ripple through local economies, increasing unemployment, suppressing consumer spending, and damaging economic growth. Thus, Canada's potash export policies hold the power to profoundly influence American agriculture and, by extension, the broader economy. While diplomatic and trade mechanisms often mitigate such risks, the theoretical scenario of a Canadian export restriction underscores a significant strategic vulnerability within U.S. agricultural supply chains. To mitigate this risk, diversifying potash sources, developing alternative potassium-based fertilizers, or investing in domestic potash production are essential strategic moves that could bolster agricultural resilience and national food security. In conclusion, any Canadian decision to significantly limit potash exports represents a potential economic threat with far-reaching consequences for U.S. agriculture. Recognizing and proactively managing this vulnerability is critical to safeguarding American food security, economic stability, and international agricultural leadership.